I'm actually in my gym, the world's coolest gym ever. And this is my Wrestling for a Cure championship right here. There it is.
Nice.
Turn it. This camera's backwards. It's messing with me.
Yeah, that's nice, man. I've seen some shitty looking indie belts, and that's not one of them.
Right? Yeah. The plates are custom. It says we fight for the kids on the plates. It's pretty freaking cool. I wanted to raise money for the St. Jude's Wrestling for a Cure thing. So Miss Merch has a little side thing where we're making keychains and things of that nature for people. I think they're like $2 to $5 a piece, or however much you want to pay for one, really. And we donate all the money to St. Jude's. My booking fees, I try not to take the booking fees. I just want to forward the money to the St. Jude's Wrestling for a Cure. So
awesome. Well, I feel like shit now because I'm not doing any of that stuff, but I should be.
Hey, but old Rocco, Rocco's.
You know what? I could always say that 3 years ago I headlined the KCXW Wrestling for Pets charity show that drew $800 for Midwest Animal Rescue. So I have that in my cap, I guess.
There you go. Yeah. See, you do something for charity, it makes you feel good.
My name is Shannon Reed. I've been a wrestling fan since the mid-1980s. I consider myself a casual historian. I'm also a professional wrestler. This podcast is dedicated to wrestling's glory days. I'm talking about the NWA, Mid-South Wrestling, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and more. Maybe you want to get extreme with ECW. Well, you can do it all right here on this podcast because we're going to have something for everybody. And yeah, we'll talk about modern wrestling as well. So tune in right here on Read This with Shannon Reed. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Read This with Shannon Reed, a classic wrestling podcast. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've had an episode come out. We're starting to roll out a little bit slower these days, just as I've been busy doing other things. And as some of you know, I have returned to the wrestling ring. I have started training again at the Extreme Wrestling Center in Raytown after taking about a year off from wrestling, and I'm happy to be back doing that and being a part of things again. But as things like that continue to come up, yeah, I might find that these episodes might roll out a little bit slower than they used to. But as I get ideas for new and interesting content, I do want to continue to do this podcast. So it could be every couple weeks. It could be sometimes where there's a month in between episodes. But hopefully you'll still tune in because I do enjoy doing it when these episodes come out. Now today, my guest is none other than Johnny Rocco, who's a guy that I trained with for years at the Extreme Wrestling Center and wrestled with for years in Kansas City Extreme Wrestling. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite matches was against Rocco back in 2017. So he'll be here today. We're going to be talking about some almost fantasy booking type stuff. We're going to be talking about some crazy what if type scenarios, and I think you'll enjoy it, hopefully. I always enjoy talking to Rocco. Rocco's kind of a lone wolf, kind of a cat that marches to the beat of his own drum, and he's out there doing his thing, oftentimes wrestling in Kansas, and he's got his avenues, his interests, his promotions he's been running, Gladius Arena Wrestling. He's also been doing some mixed martial arts training, and hopefully we'll get to talk about that. But I'm happy to have him here today. So without any further ado, let's get to today's episode. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Read This with Shannon Reed. And my special guest today is a guy that I know very well, that I've wrestled with for years. That's none other than Johnny Rocco. How you doing, Rocco?
I'm doing really, really good. How you doing?
Good. So it's been probably, a couple years since you've wrestled in KCXW, but you've been all over the place. You've been in, I know, WPW and Illinois and wrestling in, Kansas. So What all have you been up to since you last wrestled in KCXW?
Last time I wrestled in KCXW, it's been a few years. So I did a lot of work in Illinois. WPW became more of my home company. Those guys really took a shine to me. So I worked out there a lot. I worked several companies in the Illinois area. So that was the St. Louis, Illinois area is kind of my group of guys right now, I guess. I worked some Southern Kansas, MEW. I think the coolest one so far, I got to go to Mississippi last month, and I got to wrestle for Diamond Championship Wrestling, and I got to win Wrestling for a Cure Championship. So that was a great opportunity, and I got to win. It was the whole package.
Nice. And you've been busy with Gladius Arena Wrestling, which wherever that stands right now, and I'm sure you'll let us know, and we want to hear about it, and also with the MMA stuff. So tell us what else is going on in Johnny Rocco's world.
All right, so in Johnny Rocco's world, there is so much going on, man. Let's start with Gladius. You touched on Gladius. I know this is mostly a wrestling podcast, so we'll touch on that. I still want to do Gladius, and I'm still on track to do Gladius. I'm looking at September, only because I'm holding my very first fight event. They're called Smoker Fights, and I'm booking that for August the 7th in Ottawa, Kansas at the Papa Top Bar. So I just landed that gig today. So I'm finalizing all the paperwork, but it looks like that's going to be a go-ahead thing. And then September rolls around. We're looking for Gladius Arena Wrestling, and I'd like to try to do it back at the Grid in Overland Park.
Nice.
And beyond that, I might have a fight lined up for August 28th. It'll be a kickboxing match in Oklahoma. So I've been traveling to Oklahoma to fight MMA and kickboxing. I lost my MMA fight, which was unfortunate, but I made
did
mistakes.
really well though. You did really well. Like it wasn't like you went in there and just got punked. Like it was a competitive fight, and you were doing really well until you got caught.
Yeah, you just get caught. You watch the video 100 times, just like you do any wrestling film. And the thing was, like, I keep seeing mistakes. Like, man, I could have had him there, kept dropping my hands the entire match. Things that you notice about yourself afterwards. And you just train twice as hard to fix that stuff.
Yeah. So I remember back when we were wrestling in KCXW, and you the first day that I walked into training in August of 2015, I remember it was you and the Marksman and Leo D and Jason Lee was there, and
Nigma was there.
Yeah, and Justin, the trainer we used to have that was there sometimes. So kind of like a core group, and I remember that you and Marksman definitely took a liking to each other, and have always had some kind of connection. Even if you haven't always been connected inside the ring, there's always been something there that's, drawing you guys together. So what are your kind of memories of your time in KCXW and those kind of relationships and the Marksman and guys like that?
Man, I walked into the XWC. There's a funny story about all that. I was in a really weird place, and I was talking to my mom. It was several months before this, and my mother had just gotten into this Holy Bible thing, and speaking your truths. And she said, "Why don't you speak into existence what you want?" So I said, "Well, I'd like to be a professional wrestler. Maybe I'd like to be a cage fighter one day. Who knows? Like, I want to find the avenue to get there." So I was blind to the opportunity. No more than like 2 or 3 weeks later, it may have been Facebook listening, but XWC rolled up on my news feed, and it was a stone throw away from my house. I had to go, and the prices were right, and they accepted me. It was a really good deal. And I remember going in there feeling like I had loaded guns. I had like a really good entry promo. The only thing was that I got in the ring and I was a little too jittery, all that good stuff. So like Deacon, Kane, Justin, and Enigma, Adam Cox, they took the time to slow down and show me like the smaller things. And then beyond that, the marksman beat me up every single Monday and Friday for months, just to get me to understand, what I need to be doing inside those ropes. And I can never repay that. He's definitely my big brother in professional wrestling. That's my brother. And then I remember you came along, and I thought I had a really good tryout promo until we heard Shannon Reed. And the funny thing was that like you came in and everybody was like, well, look at this guy, he's humongous. And it's like, and then the next thing in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, he's gonna make it. He's just gonna be a brute, And next thing you know, he's fucking talking, and practice stops. Everybody stops, and that says a lot, and you can stop a whole room that barely even knew what you were saying to begin with, and then they pick up on this energy. That's a thing. That's not something that you just pay money to learn, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, I'm thankful that I got the reception I did. I remember when I did the tryout, like they had me doing like rolls and jumping jacks and push-ups, and when you're the size I was, which was about close to 360 at the time, stuff's not easy. And so I remember thinking, man, I need to nail this promo because I didn't know what the process was for getting accepted into the school, and I was committed to it. So I was like, man, my cardio is not so good, and I better make up for it with this promo. So I just kind of went balls out,
Yeah, I think you got the 2 out of 3. I think you need to have size, athletic ability, and an ability to talk. And you nailed 2 out of 3 right out of the gate. And you're like, I can get the other one. Like, I'll get the other one. You did, obviously. Like, you're getting there, right? So, I mean, everybody's getting there. Everybody has goals. Like, I was like, man, I need to put on some size, but I can talk, and I kind of know the work. So I had 2 out of the 3 too. I think my marksman had all of them. Like he just kind of walked in, like ready to go. That's how it seems anyway.
Yeah, marksman. He's I've always respected his work ethic. Like I never saw anybody come through the XWC that was as consistent as him. It's weird because he can. He's kind of a shooter type. He's got that amateur stuff, and he's got that cardio. Yeah, shooters. I was the Forest guy. We were always rivals.
There's no hard feelings on my end. You guys got the better end of the deal, so.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That was the one year that we did win. But marksman, he always was like kind of a shooter type, but always just a really nice guy and humble, like someone that can stretch dudes like he could. Like he was always pretty humble and helpful, but his work ethic, man, I mean, he's still in there, just like the other trainees, like several days a week.
He's got all the tools. I don't understand why he hasn't maybe reached for that star just yet. I think he could just go there and try out, and he would get it. Somebody's eye, anytime like I've been to a show and he went with me to like Illinois, and I went there and I was getting a title shot, and I walk in with Dan, the marksman. Next thing you know, everybody's like, who's that guy? Has he ever even seen a carb? And I'm like, okay, like I'll just leave. Okay, guys, bye guys. One thing, I always thought about between the marksman and I was that we were, I was always I felt like the reflection of him, but more like the reflection from like a cracked mirror. You know what I mean? Like that's what you're supposed to be in the business. I was kind of a slacker for most of my wrestling so far. Like I was good, but I could have pushed harder. And I've noticed that doing, fighting and stuff, and I finally understand some of Dan's damn it Rocco moments, so I finally understand some of those moments now.
Yeah. I always respect Dan, and I tell people that come into the center, like if you're going to model yourself after one guy, pick marksman. So one of the things we were going to do today is talk about these kind of crazy what if scenarios, like major things that have happened in wrestling. Like, what if they didn't happen, or what if they happened a little bit different of a way? And I know that we've talked about some possible ideas. So I guess we could just throw some out there and have a little fun with it. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll tell you one that I was thinking, and this just kind of came up recently. So imagine if the Undertaker's streak doesn't happen. And my thought is this. I feel like if you go back to WrestleMania 9, when he wrestled the Giant Gonzalez, Elegante, I feel like at that time there had to be at least some consideration to putting Gonzalez over in that match, because they were building towards the casket match at the Survivor Series, or whatever match they ended up having, not Survivor Series, but SummerSlam. I feel like they had like a blow-off match later that summer at SummerSlam. But I feel like Gonzalez could have easily been put over in that match to build some heat. And if that would have happened, this whole Undertaker streak does not happen.
Ooh. Okay, so when you think about this kind of stuff, this is where this idea goes. There's a butterfly effect to this. How many guys got made off of like trying to get that streak, right? So I'm thinking more further into the future. How many guys Brock Lesnar went after the streak once? Because if you realize, we didn't realize he had a streak going until like he was already like 18-0. Right.
The first time I heard about it was in the WrestleMania where he wrestled Flair. Before that, I had never heard the streak mentioned at all.
So there's a lot of guys whose careers started from chasing that streak. How many careers were made off of that streak, right? Like,
right.
You could reasonably argue that Brock Lesnar's career was made off of The Undertaker. Who else was he going to feud with that you were going to believe enough? Right? And there's nobody. Like, now you have a few guys that you can believe, but back then, like, nobody's going to stand up to Brock Lesnar. Like, that's how he was built, and that's what happened. You know what I mean? So I think Brock Lesnar's run is more lackluster, more Ken Shamrock-ish. Maybe it takes him a little bit longer to get there. I think Undertaker pushed him over the top. Undertaker pushed I believe his feud with Diesel pushed Diesel over the top for a brief minute, that he could be there.
I think it really helped Foley, Mick Foley, when he came into the WWF as Mankind. Now, this was pre-streak. The streak wasn't really a thing, but as far as people that got built off of the Undertaker, I think Mankind just as much as any of them.
Yeah, because I mean, if he would have lost to Giant Gonzalez, all respect to Giant Gonzalez, he went to the big dance. I've never been to the big dance. He wasn't in that presentation, he wasn't great. Like, he just wasn't. I don't think that character was very much more than one-dimensional, and there's a lot of one-dimensional characters. He wouldn't have lasted very long. So if he would have beat Undertaker, he may have gotten some heat. It may have been temporary, but it would have been one of those things that they made a Watch Mojo about wrestling about, and it was like, whoa, this was kind of a mistake. It would have been one of those moments, I believe.
Yeah.
Because I think the El Gigante would have been able to keep that streak or that kind of energy going.
And I'm not advocating that he should have, because he was not, he didn't have a lot going for him besides his size at all. When I look at the guys the Undertaker faced at WrestleMania in the 90s, like, I know he wrestled King Kong Bundy at like the 95 WrestleMania, but I don't think Bundy was really positioned at that time to where he would have beaten Taker, because Bundy had already been around for about a year at that point, feuding with Luger and the those guys.
Right.
But the guys that Undertaker faced in the 90s, I feel like Gonzalez was fresh enough to where I have to think it was at least talked about to have him go over. Now, what happened is they put Taker over by DQ, and I think that was obviously, in hindsight, the right call, and really it was at the time, because a guy like Gonzalez was so limited that he was going to have not much staying power.
I mean, really, how was the Undertaker going to finish him anyway? Is he going to tombstone that man? Is he going to choke slam that man? I mean,
Yeah.
You know,
I,
how else was that match going to end? You
yeah.
know,
There's not a lot you can do with the guy. I mean, the only time I saw Giant Gonzalez lose was in Japan when Great Muta blew mist in his eyes and hit him with the moonsault. But again, that's stretching things a bit with the mist being able to just knock him down. Taker, I would guess if I were booking it and I was like, well, how can Taker get the pin here? He did that flying clothesline, maybe a clothesline off the top rope or something, like topples the big man, but it's going to be really difficult to imagine him tombstoning Giant Gonzalez.
yeah, and to add to that you want to protect your character. So how does that work out for El Gigante, for a man that's so much smaller? I mean, granted, it's the fucking Undertaker, or the Undertaker. Granted, it's the Undertaker, but that doesn't look good for him to go down on a flying clothesline or whatever the Undertaker would have been able to do. Like, that wouldn't have boded him well. I think, yeah, you're right. Probably like the DQ was the best option to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then this begs the question, though: who should? I don't feel like the streak was ended right. Who do you think should have ended the streak, and how do you think it should have won?
And the funny thing is like people will think this is blasphemous when I say this. I have not seen Undertaker's WrestleMania matches with Shawn Michaels, with Triple H, with CM Punk, because I'm not really a WWE guy. And during I would say 2001 to 2014, I very rarely watched any of it because it just didn't interest me, because all the guys I grew up with that I liked were retired and gone. And I just lost interest in it. I was in college and,
Most
dating and things like that.
most of
And
us
WWE
did.
wasn't my thing. Yeah. So like I missed all of those, alleged classics that he had at WrestleMania. So I can't really speak for that. I do know that the first year that I started watching again, I think was when Lesnar ended the streak, and it did come off a bit anticlimactic, I recall. I think Brock is great, and I don't, I think it in some ways did help Brock, but it also would have been a great way to make somebody else. But the problem is that if you risk the Undertaker streak on building someone else up that's kind of new and unproven, you might run into that whole like Chris Jericho Fandango thing where Fandango beat Jericho at WrestleMania to build up the new guy, and then he became basically a prelim guy, and it was just a waste.
Right. I feel like I said that how it was done was wrong. I don't think that Brock Lesnar was the wrong guy. And I would say the moment was wrong. I think it should have been the first time, and maybe even prolong their feud for them to meet at WrestleMania until Brock was in the realm that he is kind of now with the MMA deal. And they really should have waited on the WrestleMania and have him beat him at his first WrestleMania facing the Undertaker. Undertaker beat him once already at WrestleMania before that, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
Yeah, should have been Brock Lesnar because it was the second time he faced him. I feel like it should have just happened the first time. It would have been more of a shock. You would have had less of that lackluster effect that you're talking about. I think it would have been more of a, okay, it was him. He was the one. Instead, we got this moment where it's like, well, Undertaker's beaten him before. I mean, I know that's probably what they thought was going to be the shock factor, but it wasn't. It's just not how it worked out. I don't think anybody else should have beaten The Undertaker after that. I don't think Roman Reigns should have beat The Undertaker after that. I just don't see. I think there should have only been the one in 21-1, and it should have happened at 21 or 20-1. Would have been more. Let him have 20 and beat him on the last one, put him down, and that'd be it. Maybe he faces Sting and they go to a draw on the next WrestleMania, and that's how they walk off into the sunset, and that's it. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you risk the Undertaker,
right?
And I think a little, they just a little they did.
Yeah, and I like the Sting idea of even the draw, but I know they never would have let Sting be like a complete equal to Undertaker because of the WCW thing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
It's terribly unfortunate.
right. So what about throw out a scenario, throw out another what if.
This this is a what if that I've thought about a lot, and people have their own scenario. So I'm talking the third man NWO. Everybody likes to talk about it. And this is one of my favorite moments. Hulk Hogan's the third man, right? But what if now everybody knows the scenario? Maybe it may have been was going to be Sting, and people talk about that a lot. I don't want to talk about that. What if it was Macho Man, right? Because then you start a whole other thing. Because now he has entirely different motives. He was kind of shunned by Vince McMahon. You can say that Hall and Nash felt shunned by Vince McMahon, and now they're here to take on pro wrestling as a whole, right? And they're like, screw these guys, screw Hogan. He's part of the problem, and they take out Sting. Sting still does, he can still do the wild vigilante thing, but he can disappear for a little while when we still have really strong guys to stand up to the NWO and keep NWO to like a core 4 guys. Try to keep it to like Macho, Nash, and Hall for a while, and then bring in 6. That would work. And you can build a team of 4 to go against him. Who would you have?
The problems with the NWO was, it became where everybody was an NWO member. There was like 15 of them, Horace Hogan and Vincent and all those guys.
The flaw in the story was trying to make NWO a rival company like WWE, and that it didn't come off that way. It came off as a faction. It didn't come off as a rival company. They could have been a gang as they were that was taking on wrestling as a whole. They might talk crap about Vince McMahon, but this is the platform that they have a moment to be at. I mean, they could have opened a little bit more doors, I think. But like, think about the guys who would have been able to go against a set of 4 guys in the stable instead of 100. They could have built. Hogan could have stayed a face and worked with the Giant. And Paul White could have built himself up as like a number 1, number 2 guy in the company really fast. And who would have teamed with? Who was available? Who was hot back then? Who do you got? DDP, Goldberg,
Luger.
Those guys that are hot. You put a team of 4 of those guys together. Goldberg was on a streak. You have the 1, 2, 3 kid beat the streak. What kind of what? It's a lot better than a stupid taser gun, I think.
Yeah.
Goldberg smashes everybody else. So he jackhammers the Giant, and he gets beat by the 1, 2, 3 kid. And that could have been a great FU to Vince, all that kind of stuff. Like we kind of touched on your saying, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I know when at the time that I ordered that pay-per-view, Bash at the Beach '96, and when Hogan came out and was the third man, I just remember at the time Hogan was, he had been a babyface on Nitro. He'd been wrestling guys like Flair and Hogan, or Flair and Arn and Kevin Sullivan, and he wasn't getting the reactions that he used to. I think people were starting to tire of him, and I feel like once Hall and Nash came over and they were the cool thing, I feel like Hogan immediately like leached onto that and positioned himself with the cool guys, and then kind of took them over because he really was the guy that stood out. Now I remember at the time I hated watching Hogan because I found him boring, and I just he was older, and I liked the young like luchadors and stuff. But he was the guy. He was clearly like the singles guy, and then you had Hall and Nash kind of secondary, even if Hall and Nash in some ways were more popular. I don't know if I was always way more of a Savage guy than a Hogan guy.
Really, you're a Savage guy? Never would have picked it for a Savage guy.
Not Jay Savage, Randy Savage. Definitely more of a Mach guy, and but I don't know that it would have had the impact. Like it would have been big. It would have been, you could do it, and it would have been big, but I don't know that it would have been to where Hogan had this like separation where he was clearly the guy. And I think with Savage, I think politically he may not have been positioned well enough versus Hall and Nash, like to be so centerpiece. I mean, I guess if they're feuding with Hogan, like you have something there, but I don't know. I don't know if they would have. I don't know if it would have worked out the same.
A new four. I mean, how many? I mean, because you said Hogan had been facing guys like been facing one-off guys, and he always faced one guy, one fucking threat, whatever. You always faced one threat. What about? I mean, he faces a threat of a gang warfare. Like, this is a whole new turf for him. It could have reinvigorated his character, in my opinion, if he wanted to stay a face, which obviously he didn't. And it was a good move. It was a good move. He made lots of money doing that. All those guys made lots of money doing that. A lot of people made good money off of NWO and how it went. I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm just saying I feel like it could have worked, and it could have put Macho in that spot where I feel like he could have been. Like, they tried it. And remember when they feuded over the NWO, he feuded for leadership of the NWO. They were a day late and a dollar short. I mean, they could have done something like that between Macho and Nash, and it would have been awesome. I don't feel like, I don't know. I was such a Hogan fan when I was a kid that maybe I was a little burned too when he went black and white. Maybe there's some resentment there with that. But I never agreed with it being Sting or Hogan. I was like, man, if it would have been Macho and they would have kept it to 4 or even added a 5th guy later, like when Bret Hart came over and they added a 5th guy, that would have been huge shit. I think it would have been huge. And like have it not be where like Macho was even there. Like the NWO came back and they had a new, guy. You know what I mean? They always kept it. There was only 4 members active at a time, but like maybe they had a guy or 2 change out once in a while. Like,
did you order the sold out pay-per-view when it happened? The NWO sold out?
No, I did not order sold out. I did pirate the event. What would have been piracy back in the day?
Wow, that's even before I knew that it was a thing.
Right, no, like somebody always recorded it, and you pass around the videotape. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And that was a hard form of piracy back then.
I was picturing you climbing like a cable pole and like hooking some wires together and getting free pay-per-view.
No, I didn't know how to do that. My dad knew how to do that, but I couldn't do that. He wouldn't have done that for free pay-per-view though. No, but we did pass around the VHS. I was a little bit behind. I saw updates on television before I really saw the matches. It was unfortunate. But,
gotcha.
I did watch. I got to see like Super Bowl IX, and that was one of my favorite ones. There was a lot of good ones that I got to see.
Yeah, I ordered sold out, and the 2 matches I wanted to see were the Eddie Guerrero 6 ladder match and the Masahiro Chono Chris Jericho match, and largely that's all I cared about. I remember, and it was really not the best pay-per-view you could ever see, but yeah, NWO was so hot at the time that people didn't care that much.
They just wanted to see the NWO and hear the music.
I told this story a few weeks back. I went to a WCW house show at Memorial Hall back in '98, and it had a hideous lineup, and it sold out. It sold out like 3,000 people sold out the Memorial Hall, and even for that shitty lineup, but everyone that was there, they wanted to see Hall and Nash. They wanted to see the NWO, even though the only NWO guys on the card were Six and Vincent.
Okay.
They didn't care.
Now think about this. What if my timeline might be a little skewed, but it might be in that same realm of time. What if Shawn Michaels had jumped over to WCW and Bret Hart was willing to do business, and Michaels couldn't work with Brett anymore, right? And let's say him and his bad attitude went to WCW at the time, right? That's what he chose to do. So even if you grow, sometimes you have to deal with the choices you make. He would have been with his friends for a brief while. What do you think would have happened?
I think it would have been even more chaotic than WCW was at the time, because I think Hall and Nash held Michaels in such reverence that even though Nash had so much power in WCW, I think that he may have like deferred to Michaels as like the guy. I think they would have done everything to position him very strongly, and uh, that whole dynamic in the back with everyone being their own booker, I think it would have been intensified, if anything.
You think it probably would have led to more poison in the well, huh?
That's what I think. I think the matches, Michaels was a great wrestler, and he would have had some great matches, I'm sure, with guys like Benoit and Booker T or whoever. But yeah, more poison in the well for sure with Michaels at that time.
Do you think it would have added to any longevity with WCW?
No, I think they were too far gone, and I think that even though Michaels would have been a great coup to get, I think it would have been. I mean, it wouldn't have been the flop that Brett was, because Michaels, I think, would have been positioned better politically. But do I think it would have turned things around? I think the booking was the problem. I mean, they could have got anybody at that point. Maybe if they would have got Austin or Rock, it would have extended things a little bit because they were so hot. But I can't imagine anyone else being able to overcome like such awful booking.
And we all know Austin was never going to jump ship. The Rock, it was family business. I don't
Yeah,
think anyone else was going to jump over, obviously.
I think I think Goldberg, even if you look at how Goldberg worked, I think he was way more impactful than Michaels would have been at all. And he couldn't even like he helped them a little bit, and he was their most over guy for a while. But even having Goldberg debuted in the end of 1997, and the company was out of business 3.5 years later.
True.
So
All right. Everybody wants to send me a message. All right. Okay, so
we should do
that?
one more. We should do one more. I got about 12% left on my. Oop. Oop.
There I am. Sorry about.
No, you're good. I was saying we should do one more. I got about 12% left on my battery on my phone. We should pick one more scenario, and I'll let you pick it because I know you've been thinking of these.
All right. One more scenario. What if okay, so I was wanting to save this one. We all know the storyline. Rikishi ran over Steve Austin. And we know that wasn't supposed to be the case, right? That was supposed to be wasn't it supposed to be Billy Gunn, or was it Triple H that was said to was supposed to have ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin? What if it wasn't Rikishi? And who should it have been?
Huh.
We all know that was a long time. We waited for Stone Cold to come back for that storyline. It wasn't.
That was during the era where I have to really kind of think about who was around even at that time. I know Rikishi had been really popular as a babyface, doing the Too Cool thing, and then I know they turned him heel. It wasn't around Survivor Series that this happened.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Rikishi wasn't even. I wouldn't say we've seen him on a card really, or even Too Cool much for that matter when Stone Cold was hit. So you know what I mean. I don't. It doesn't place Rikishi in that timeline for me, right? For it to be him. He was popular when the story came to a head, but he'd only been popular for what, a good strong year, maybe a year and a half. I mean, Austin been for a minute. I
I'd
feel
have
like
I'd
go
have to
ahead.
think it would be someone that was. It's weird to think of someone as big as Rikishi having to run over someone. Like I feel like it should be someone that's jealous, like jealous of Austin's like where he's at. Like maybe a corporate figure, maybe an Eric Bischoff like is involved in that somehow. Or Vince himself, but someone that doesn't have the means to physically dominate Austin. Because Rikishi, I mean, you could buy him beating Austin in the ring, like for his size, like he could fight and everything. So I think if you get like a real tough guy, I don't know that running over Austin sends the message that you're a real badass. Like that sounds like kind of a cowardly heel type move. Something like, like maybe a Shawn Michaels would do,
Shawn Michaels would do that. He was jealous. At the time, he was out of the company, right, with his back injury. Um, there was no other way to take on Austin, perhaps. Uh, Shawn Michaels didn't come back for what, another year or two after
I
that
think
storyline? Go
he
ahead.
came I think he came back in '02. I feel like I don't even remember like what year the Rikishi thing took place.
The Rikishi thing happened in about 2001 because it was The Rock was uh, yeah, because Rikishi and the Too Cool thing was really hot in like 99 to 2000 and all through 2000. Like I remember that because it was like a big thing at our school. So the whole Too Cool thing was big when I was in 6th grade. So that's like 91 into 2000. And then most of that next year, it was pretty popular because they were on both video games. So somewhere around 2002, probably Rikishi's line came to a head, and then Shawn Michaels came back shortly after Triple H made his return after he tore his quad, right?
I mean, it sounds like it's right. Like I said, it's not my clearest time
They're about
frame.
4 years apart, so I don't know if Shawn Michaels would work.
Yeah, I know Jericho hadn't been around very long at that point.
Jericho would have been a good one because ultimately he was the first one to get the Undisputed Championship.
Yeah,
It would have been a really good thing for him to have underneath his belt. I ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin.
and yeah, and here's this one's a stretch. Like this one is a stretch, but I was thinking of that time period. What if what if it was right to censor and Austin, had been so controversial? Right to censor was that group of Stevie Richards and The Godfather where they were trying to tone down WWE. What if they ran over Austin to like combat his whole 316 thing? It's a bit of a stretch because they're really lower to mid card guys, so I don't know that you would do that, but it would at least have some logic to it if it was them.
It would be fun. I feel like Jericho would have been good because I feel like that was right in that neighborhood of time that Rock pretty much owned him when he made his debut on the mic and he needed some retribution, perhaps, or he was trying to make an impact. I think you were onto it when you said Jericho. Like he had the charisma to carry a storyline like that with a guy like Stone Cold Steve Austin. That would have been a great story.
And I could buy him doing something like that over like a guy like Rikishi, who Rikishi doesn't need to run over anybody. He could just get in your face.
Yeah, yeah, he can just roll over somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know A Clay has started doing the stink face?
Yeah, I imagine he did.
He's doing a lot of the. I mean, he's not got the thong or anything, but he's doing a lot of the. Like half of his moves have to do with his ass, like in the corner. I swear, it's like he runs and does an ass splash, and then he fucking shakes his ass and shit.
He's just hoping for a slip. Oh, hey Clay, I do miss the crew. I might have to go back and see what everybody's doing one of these days. I got
I know.
a wrestling for a cure championship I need to defend. Maybe I should try to defend it in Kansas City. I haven't thought about it.
There you go. I know you got this Spar Wars event you've been promoting. Tell me about that while we have some time here.
So at the gym, Dancing Bear Muay Thai started in XWC, and we expanded into our own location. My friend JT is the head coach. I'm just kind of helping with the promotion end of it and helping us, find some fun things to do. Spar Wars is this thing, and it's all in gym. We have guys come from different martial arts gyms within. I don't know. There's guys coming from Oklahoma, but there's also guys coming from Overland Park. There's going to be some people coming from Ottawa, Kansas, and they come to our gym. And they sign up, and if you want to step in our ring or climb onto the mats and do some grappling, it's $20 to sign up, and you can sign up your whole team. And we have some medals that people can win for the grappling matches, and then there's some medals for the kickboxing matches as well. And you can sign up for both. I'm going to be doing both.
Tell me also about your business relations with Mrs. Merchandise. I know you've worked closely with her, helping a lot of the guys out. Tell me about that.
So Miss Merchandise is my business partner in this whole production thing. I've been working with her, and her husband also has helped a lot with the Gladius video production, our intro video. That's really cool. That family and me, we've worked really close together. Miss Merchandise makes merchandise for everybody. We've even made merchandise, those pops, those little merchandise pops guys.
I got one of those.
Yeah, well, she made one for the guy that plays Superman on the CW or whatever. He bought one for I think he's bought 2 or 3 for himself, and he bought a couple for people on set too. So we made it for him, and we met him through the guy. What's his name? Bishop Stevens, the wrestler who's now like an actor. He's bought ridiculous amounts of pops from us. So those pops are really popular. Again, that's part of that working relationship with Miss Merchandise. She made me shirts one time, and she made masks for the Purple Phoenix, right? And I told her at the time, Miss Merch couldn't work in America necessarily legally and have a job. She was here legally, but she couldn't work legally. So this gave her something to do and a little way to make some scratch. And I was like, hey, you could probably make shirts and make masks for guys all the time, and you can make a killing probably. And she jumped in with 2 feet. And now this business has grown to the part where we have like a laser forge, there's a 3D printer, there's all kinds of cool stuff that we can do now with this crazy business and the crazy people that we've gotten to meet.
All right, we're back.
Right. There we go.
Yeah. So I guess your phone probably died, and then mine died like soon afterward.
Yeah, exactly.
I know when we left off, we were talking about, Mrs. Merchandise and the great work that she does.
Yeah. Yep. If it wasn't honestly, when it comes to Miss Merchandise and that business, is really intertwined with my career. Like, I feel like, I've had that backup since day one, like almost day one. Like my very first show, the very next show, I had merch, right? And it was a good deal for me because I hooked her up with other people that bought merch, and pretty much my merchandise came for free. So it was a good opportunity. It's a good person to have in your corner. And then I was like, I confided in this person. I was like, my dream is to do this. And, I went to a lucha show and I see this potential. Like if one person wanted to kind of monopolize what they're doing at a lucha show and just do it all themselves, for a different audience or for an all-encompassing audience, I think we would be really successful. So that's kind of there's a lot of opportunities I would never have gotten had I not had like that backup, right? Like people like the guy that shows up and he can get you shirts, what I mean? I know somebody that can hook you up with some cool shit, and then not only that, I would help talk guys through some of the stuff. Like, man, what you should be selling? Sell this. and then those guys would make good money that weekend, right? And then that's good rapport in the business. So without her, I would have never had an opportunity to even approach that kind of talk with anybody.
And her merchandise has gotten so expansive. Like she did some really cool looking belts I saw, like for guys like I think Ricky Cruz was one of them. Like just cool stuff, like a variety of things that you could sell at these shows.
The belts are the number one thing. The kids, that's like my best kid right there. She knows when the camera's on, Dad needs some time, and like she's like the coolest kid. But she's gonna come and beat me up here in a little bit over it later. So, but
Nice.
she's gonna be right on my footsteps. So she already understands like the shoot business and the real business already. So she'll be a force to be reckoned with. Sorry, what were we talking about? Miss Merchandise.
Yeah, the belts. Yeah.
The belts. So the belts and the pops are the two biggest sellers. If you can design a belt, and I'm not even talking the expensive ones that we sell, I'm talking the cheapo cardboard and foam belts that like the machines cut out to precision in such a way that we put them together, and I could sell them for $5 and I'm making them for pennies, maybe. I'm not even sure. We can't calculate what we can make something for like that. But those belts, you can make 100 of them and they would all be gone by the end of the night. Those are the one thing that will not stay on the table. If you can find a way to sell belts and make belts, there you go. Sell them cheap.
Yeah, definitely something I might look into once shows start happening again.
Yeah, sell a Shannon Reed special belt, and you'll sell 100 of them. And go to Miss Merch and tell her that you want those affordable belts. We work on these really cool epoxy belts, and they're pretty cool. I gave one to Renee for his fantasy league, and they use it and they like it a lot. We do have a higher quality that we've been messing around with that I'd like to have at our shows and do giveaways and stuff. So that would be really fun. Like again, my shows that I intend to put on as a promoter wouldn't be as good or as profitable without the partnership of Miss Merchandise.
Right. Yeah.
My career aligned with that whole business. I'm certain of it.
Yeah. And she's super easy to deal with, and I recommend anybody that wants merch made to get in touch with Mrs. Merchandise. She's always been great to deal with, quality merchandise. Like I said, I'm waiting on a couple of shirts right now that I just delivered to her, and she's putting some designs on them. And yeah, can't recommend her enough.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people use her. I've been meaning to ask, and I was going to ask earlier, and it just crossed my mind again. From what I've seen online, you're thinking about climbing back into the ring again, right?
I already have.
Oh, you already have. All right, I'm a piece of shit.
Well, let's put it this way. I've climbed back in the ring for one session of training so far.
No, okay, that's what I meant. I saw that. I thought you had already wrestled again, and I was like, I'm waiting for him to wrestle again.
No, I haven't had a match yet because K6W is obviously not running shows. They do this Saturday Slam taping thing that they show on YouTube, and they're doing one this weekend, and I'll be there. I don't know if I'll be used. It's one of those things where I've been back for one session. I'm going to train on Friday, but I don't know when they're going to throw me back out there. I feel ready. I do, because I definitely felt rusty at first, but it's like riding a bike. I took a year off, but getting back in there, I could totally go out and do a match. I'm not worried about that at all. Now, being in ring shape, that's a little different because I've lost a lot of weight and I feel good in the gym, but getting back in there and doing drop downs and rolls and drills and stuff, it was definitely kind of taxing. So that'll take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I hear you there. Yeah, man, I'm excited to see you get back in there. That'll be really good to see. So
and that Shannon Reed Jay Savage match on the Gladius show that'll happen someday.
Oh yeah, I would definitely book it. 100%, 100%. Get every time.
Right.
So I would definitely want to book a series of interviews between the two of you before we ever do any a match. We'll do a series of interviews and we'll let it get really nice and heated with you guys
That's
before
not
I
hard to do.
destroy each other. That'd be great. It'd be good entertainment for me. You guys are gonna like probably wrestle again, but it'll be good for me.
So I'm happy to see that you got so much going on with you got the Spar Wars, you got Gladius, you got the side business with Mrs. Merchandise, doing the new Wrestling for a Cure champion. You even got your own home gym now. Like you made a kind of a makeshift gym where you can, and you've gotten really in shape. Like I remember when I first started training with you, you were I wouldn't say you were like skin and bones, because you weren't. Like you had a little muscle on you, but you've definitely evolved since then to be quite the formidable specimen.
Yeah. Well, it's like something switched to my brain one day, and I just decided, like, I've never really pushed myself. I used to play football, and I did just enough to start. You know what I mean? As a freshman, and I got to start, and I was like, cool, that's great. If I would have pushed myself, who knows what I could have done back then. But I guess JT, he said that the good part about that is I preserved my body. So I preserved it for a really long time. So now I'm able to push myself in a later age, and I have my what he says, old man strength. So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling really good, actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate about what your age actually is.
Really, I
Because
wonder.
you had told me a number. You had told me a number years ago, and then I repeated that to somebody else, and they thought you were just yanking my chain. So there's a lot of confusion out there.
Yeah, that's part of the mystique of Johnny Rocco, I suppose.
I guess it'll remain a mystique for now.
Yeah. Well, it's a matter of experience. In the Bible, the guys were like 999 years old or some shit, right? And they really measured it based on wisdom. I've seen a lot of things, like, and I started really young, knowing things that people are just now figuring out, right? So being that kind of aware for that span of time, I remember things from the fucking 80s because, like, I was kind of, here, I was cognizant. I remember everything. So I feel old. I feel really old.
Yeah.
But I am, like, but I'm not.
Right. One of the segments I like to do on this show, there's a couple of them. The first one, which we could do right now, is called "Oh, You Didn't Know."
Oh,
and yeah, so I'm going to kind of put you on the spot now. This is all about recognizing a talent that you feel is very underrated. It could be a national talent, a famous name, or it could be someone here from the Midwest. Who is someone that you feel is very underrated in your opinion?
very underrated wrestler. Well, of course, I want to go local. So let's narrow it down to local. Very underrated wrestler, I feel like, would be Juno Granger. Like, Juno Granger's got a lot going on up here. Not a whole lot of people that I've met have a lot going on up there. And he definitely has had a lot going on up there since I first met him. So that's one dude I definitely keep my eye on.
It's amazing that as many years as Juno and I have been on the same shows, I've never wrestled Juno.
What? I've only gotten to wrestle him one time. I've only really gotten to wrestle him one time, and it was good. I feel like it was good. I think all my matches were good, of course. So
I saw that match. It was on Facebook. I remember watching it years ago. And yeah, it was. And I'd like to wrestle Juno. Like he's one of the guys that, like I said, I've trained with him obviously, but we've never had a match, shockingly enough.
That would be a good one. He's fun.
Yeah. A guy I got my eye on that I think is really kind of coming into his own is Pariah.
Yeah. Yeah. His beard is almost as great as mine. Like, he's really like been working out hard. Have you seen some of that transformation that he's gone through?
Yeah, he's got some of that Johnny Rocco stuff going on.
Right.
I
In the
remember
air.
he was just like a random guy that showed up on KCXW shows. Like I don't think he was training with us at the time, but they were using him, and then I got to wrestle him, and I enjoyed working with him, and then I got to train with him later on, and he's just a really good guy, and I feel like he's worked hard. And when KCXW comes back, I'd like to see him kind of in that forefront. He's got a good thing going with Ryan Gingell, the Infinite, right now, and
Yeah.
I'm looking for good things from both of them, really.
Oh yeah. Those are KCXW is really building a solid roster pool. Yeah, it's definitely looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. You got like the Leo D's still wrestling out there. Yeah, was it Jude Weiss? Is it Jude Weiss now?
Yeah. He actually turned heel on me. We were teaming in a match, and he attacked me with a chain. Well, he walked out on me first, then he came in, and after I got beat, and pounded me with a chain and ripped the mask off. And so maybe that's a score I'll have to settle when I come back.
Yeah, squashing him like a bug. No,
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of happy. I like that. I mean, not that he beat you up. I mean, of course, but that he beat somebody up to end that way. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, we could all use a little change sometimes, I guess. And you never
Yeah.
know, my day on the dark side could come still. You never know.
Oh yeah. We all walk the dark side a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So one more segment before I let you go
All right.
is it's called Who Better Than Canyon? So I'm gonna name two guys or two girls, two tag teams, whatever, and you kind of tell me who you like more. Who either could be who you think is better, or just kind of who's your guy, kind of a thing.
Okay.
So I'm gonna name a couple of people. So your first choice is Razor Ramon or Yokozuna.
I'm always gonna choose Razor Ramon or Scott Hall. Like, I'm sorry, it's just a biased opinion.
I,
That's
I
how.
set I set Yoko up for failure because I knew you couldn't pick anybody over Razor. So.
Yeah, like, he's just like, yeah, I just yeah. Here, we're gonna Razor Ramon and Sacrificial Lamb. What would you like?
uh, how about this one? Sabu or John Cena?
Ooh. Okay, so here's the thing. Sabu is a legend, but I have to go with John Cena, and there's a reason for this. Sabu and ECW ushered in kind of this ultra violent era and this ultra violent kind of culture of wrestling. I feel like Sabu is him and Mick Foley are very responsible for those kind of things. They are. I know, like, control what your kids watch, but they watch that. We all failed that message. Don't try it at home. We all failed it.
Yeah.
But right. But I feel like Sabu is a legend for doing what he did, but it created kind of a hazard, occupational hazard for wrestlers. And it's not something I necessarily like. I've been in a barbed wire steel cage. I didn't like it. I feel like John Cena is a more well-rounded wrestler. He has good matches. Almost all of his matches are good. and he's going to draw. He knows how to draw. He knows how to, I liked him when he did the Vanilla Ice thing, and I was like, he did that Vanilla Ice on the Halloween special on SmackDown, and I was like, oh, dude, he should do something like that. That would be really, really good, right? And then, sure enough, later he does the Doctor of Thugonomics thing, and I was like, well, that's close enough, pretty good.
Right.
So, John
All
Cena.
right. All right. I'm going to go with for these first two, I actually would have went Yoko and Sabu on both of these. So,
Really?
yeah. So for the last one, how about this one? Eddie Guerrero or Rob Van Dam?
Ooh. Well, I think Eddie was definitely underrated for too long before he became like a hit. But Rob Van Dam was definitely the freaking man, and he would have been the man had he not had a little mishap when he was in WWE. So Rob Van Dam.
Yeah, I'm a big RVD fan. I'll go with Eddie on this one, but RVD was, I would love to have seen him get like a solid long main event run because he's really one of my favorite WWE main eventers of the last 20 years for sure.
I also give that point to Rob Van Dam because Eddie had the benefit of growing up in a wrestling family, right? So like I feel like Rob Van Dam may have had to work just a tiny bit harder to get a foot where he got to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean that's my only kind of bias sway between the two.
Gotcha. Well, Rocco, it's been fun talking with you, finding out what you're up to, talking about some memories of our old KCXW crew and all the cool things, wrestling for a Cure champion, and I look forward to seeing videos of you successfully defending that belt.
It will come very, very soon. July 16th is the very next match that I have for it in Iowa at L&M Fight Productions. So Dexter, Iowa, here I come.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me, Rocco.
Thank you. See you later, sir.
All right.